So let's just pick up where we left off last night. This is, to me, it can be complicated, but can also be very simple, because it's just taking a section of prophecy in the Song of Songs, applying what we know about biblical symbols, biblical language. And here's the thing to understand about biblical symbols. Context is everything. For instance, a day might be 24 hours in the proper context. In a different context, a day might simply be a period of time that's not measured by 24 hours. I think that's where they get into the when does the day start argument, and I'm thinking just apply a little context and you'll understand when the day starts and when it ends. But often we get so focused in on one way of looking at things that what we're losing is the significance. Often we think we're trying to unpack meaning when really all we're trying to do is find the significance of it. And so as we're looking at this passage in the Song of Songs, which by the way is chapter 4, and we've been unpacking verses 6 through 8 as prophecy of the return of the exiles. And that's not so much a special prophecy that's set off to the side. It actually takes you all the way back to the garden. What was plan A? Plan A was for Adam and his descendants to rule and to reign over the earth. There's no plan B. It's still plan A. What he set out to do is what he will perform eventually. And that's what I tell people, when they get upset about their kids or their grandkids not walking the walk or not walking in salvation, I just say, they're not there yet. They're not walking yet. They're not in obedience yet, but always add yet, because Adonai is not through with them, and neither are you. So don't be discouraged. And it's the same thing with the Father and us. Sometimes it looks like we're not there, and we're not going to get there. We're just not there yet. And I think that's why it's so important to go back and look at Bilam's prophecy of Israel dwelling in perfection. That the whole context of that prophecy, you can see Israel planted in the garden. You can see the rivers flowing. You can see the water flowing. You can see the trees. You can see the aloes of healing. That was the plan from the beginning. So it's just a matter of, when we look at prophecy, tracing the path. How are we going to get from the garden back to where John is prophesying about in the book of Revelation? Well, it starts with the foundations of the Torah. It doesn't take very long. I don't know if you can do this, Bill, but it's over time you kind of get good at it. When you're talking to someone and they're asking you a question about the Bible, you can tell how much time they spend in the Torah portions. Because when they start talking about prophecy, they'll get off on these weird tangents. And I'm like, you were never grounded in the Torah portions, or you wouldn't be going down that path. You're departing from what was established at the beginning, and you're inventing new things, which is basically what people have always done with the book of Revelation. They've stripped it out of its Torah foundation, and when you put it back on its Torah foundation, you can even read it as a Haggadah. You can even find the Song of Moses. You can see all the parallels between the book of Revelation and the Torah. And so when we're looking at a passage of prophecy right here, where did we go back to? Abraham. A clarification of Abraham, a land, a covenant, and a people. So last night we looked at how the mountain of myrrh and the hill of frankincense is actually a very prophetic and poetic way of referring to the Temple Mount itself. A restoration to Jerusalem. And that's what we're waiting for. We know that the heavenly Jerusalem is hovering. It's hovering above the natural, physical Jerusalem. And it was intended to be married in the beginning. That was plan A. That's why Adam had to be both a spiritual and a physical being. He had to be able to rule and reign according to the word that was given to him in those two realms simultaneously. And you see that with Yeshua. He could go into and out of realms. He'd just pop out on you. Like, well, where is he? Well, he's right there. You don't see him? No, I don't see him. Well, he's right there. Because see, if you had those eyes, the pre-sin eyes, he wouldn't be out of sight at all. And so mankind was created to be able to function in both of those realms simultaneously. After the resurrection, we will be. And we can see that pattern in Yeshua. Even before he died and was resurrected from the grave, we can see him functioning in both realms equally well. So just imagine what we'll be like when we can function in both of those realms equally well. When he says, you are altogether beautiful, my darling, and there is no blemish in you, it is because we are able to function in that spiritual, clean realm as well. And that's why in the millennium, it talks about how clean the temple and even the whole city of Jerusalem will be. What does it say? The bells on the horses, they're going to be holy. Your average just cookware, eating ware in your house is going to be just as holy as what's used in the temple. That's a level of holiness that we're going to be able to achieve in a resurrected body, so that once again, that spiritual realm can come down and marry with the natural realm. That's what we were created to do, to rule and to reign with King Messiah in that realm. So he's calling us to this mountain. He's calling us back to Jerusalem, and he foresees a time when we have no blemish. We're able to actually dwell there, to stay there, to remain there. A time when the Torah will go forth from Jerusalem. The word of the Lord will go forth from Zion. And like we said, Zion is really the sticking point. When you talk to people about there being Jews in the land, most of them are okay with there being a few, but they're not okay with them being an autonomous nation in control of its boundaries. They will never tolerate that as long as Edom is alive. So that's when we looked also at the crybaby Edom, how he has always coveted to reset the boundaries, and so have the nations. It's like the coastlands. They were assigned their boundaries according to their families and according to their languages. But we saw how Israel was a nation set apart. It says, will not be reckoned among the nations. Adonai himself set that boundary, just like he set a boundary around one tree in the garden. He says, nations, you can have these things, but you can't have this thing. This is mine. Don't touch my anointed. He sets the boundaries. It's not ours to move those boundary stones. So he equates the return from the exile to coming from Lebanon. And of course, you can hear Lavan. You know, we talked about the Torah portion this morning. Jacob had to go into exile in the land of Lavan. Lavan means white, and we know Lavan definitely wasn't pure. But what happened to Jacob there? A purification. There were some things he had to learn in exile before he could come home and Vayeshev, to try to settle down there. And it's the same thing at the resurrection. We don't believe that we're going to be resurrected with all our blemishes and rebellions, do we? No, that's going to have to be purified out of us, and that's why we're walking the way that we walk. We're preparing to live in a clean and a holy place. And so this describes the route. We're going to come from Lebanon. We're going to come from a place of exile. My bride, he says, journey down from the summit of Amanah and the summit of Senir and Hermon, and from the dens of the lions and the mountains of the leopard. And so we broke those down. What are those? The mountain of Emunah refers back to the faith of Abraham. He had to have the faith that, yes, these are the boundaries that will be assigned to my descendants one day, and that has to be accepted with faith. And if you have faith, then it is accounted to you as righteousness that you haven't yet walked in. It's the credit in your account before you actually do it. The understanding is once you learn how to do it, then you no longer have to ride on credit. You can actually then walk in that righteousness of Yeshua as you learn it. Then it mentions also Senir and Hermon. Hermon, we know, is associated with the snows. So we'll just keep unpacking from there. And where we ended up with was the gifts. We don't know if they were 3 wise men or more than that or fewer than that, but we know they brought 3 particular gifts. They brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And that's why it was important to go back and establish what Bilam saw. He saw a star arising out of Jacob. He saw a scepter. He saw a king. He saw royalty. He heard the shout of a king among them, and then explained why he could see them without a blemish. Because it's through the actions of that king that Jacob is going to be able to stand in perfection without a blemish. And I would say just about everybody in this room probably has come to that understanding of the covenant with Abraham through their faith in Yeshua. That Yeshua was the one that guided you into that understanding. And it's because of Yeshua that you have begun to observe the Torah, all of it, not just 80% or 60%. Because of Yeshua and because you love him and because there's no part of him that you want to discard, he is the living word. You are beginning to embrace every part of the Torah because you want to embrace every part of who he is. So here's what it says about the men from the east in Matthew 2:10. It says, when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. After coming into the house, all right, prophecy people, the house is a metaphor for the, you know this, you just had lunch. Temple, absolutely. They saw the child with Miriam, his mother, and they fell to the ground and worshiped him. Then opening their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned by God in a dream not to return to Herod, the Magi left for their own country by another way. So that's where we ended last night. We looked at least two of those three treasures, which of course were the frankincense and the myrrh that is mentioned in the Song of Songs passage. How are we going to return? Where are we going to return? We're going to return to the temple. We're going to return to the house. And that is where they offered the incense offerings that included primarily the things that we remember are the frankincense and the myrrh. But it also says that they brought gold. And that's going to, again, take us back to this understanding of return from the exile. That these are actually gifts for the Messiah, because there's going to be a play on word. Remember how we looked up shur last night, which means to regard, to look at, to perceive, lurking about. In the case of the Holy One, to do us good, just the way that the beast has been lurking about to try to do bad. And we define the coastlands as the boundaries of the nations. Isaiah 60, verse 9 says, surely the coastlands will wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish will come first to bring your sons from afar, their silver and their gold with them, for the name of the Lord your God and for the Holy One of Israel, because he has glorified you. So we looked at the coastlands, last night, the nations, the coastlands. They have constantly tried to reassign the boundaries of Israel. All through history, they've tried to reset the boundaries. They would want to dominate that particular land. And remember, the domination and control is the mindset of Esau, of Edom, the red beast. And remember, the worst manifestation of Esau is going to be Amalek, who will only be satisfied after the people are killed. Remember, both of these are ways of rejecting Elohim as the creator of the universe and having the authority to set any boundary he chooses. And so now he says, there will be a time when these coastlands who have constantly troubled my people, they will wait for me. They're going to wait for my plan instead of trying to reset with their own plans. And part of this plan is they're going to start bringing your sons from far places, and with them will come silver and with gold. So this return from the exile, we're going to a place of frankincense and myrrh, but the people here in the internal equivalence of expression It's equating the people that are being returned as silver and gold. And so who's coming back in the exile? The gold. The gold is coming back to Jerusalem. The gold is being returned to the temple. What did the Babylonians carry off? All the gold. They took all the good stuff off and they sent it into that first exile. What have the beast kingdoms done? They've taken the gold, and the gold is not so much the physical vessels of the temple. The people were the vessels of the temple. The people were the gold of the temple. And they took them off into exile, and they began to reappropriate them to idolatrous function. And that's exactly what happened. To much of Israel, they were sent into exile, they lost their identity, and they were absorbed into idolatrous functions. But Isaiah is prophesying of a time when those nations are going to give up those sons and daughters, and they're going to return that gold to the temple, to its rightful house, to the rightful place. And that helps us get into the mind of Herod, why he would be so afraid of these three gifts that the wise men brought. Because Herod was a red one. Herod was Esau in two ways. He was two kinds of red one. First of all, he was an Idumean. It means that he was from Edom. The Idumeans at some point in history were forcibly converted. We would call it Judaism today. Back then there wasn't a Judaism. There were Judaisms, but there were lots of isms, which those controversies are still stirred up today unnecessarily. But he's only a nominal Jew. His heart's not in it. He's in it for the loot. Basically, the control. Remember, Esau, he's all about control. What did Herod crave? Control. Did he kill a lot of Jews? Yes, he did, but he was more about control. And he's also an Edomite. He's also a red one in that he is a Roman citizen. Over time, Esau was understood by the Jews of the first century. Rome became identified with Esau. And to this day, if you look at the literature, especially the Hanukkah literature, they refer to the Roman Empire as the Red One. And in the liturgy for Hanukkah, they say, deliver us from the Red One, because it's because of the Red One, Rome, that we are still in this current exile. And you can actually see in the iron and clay feet and toes of the beast that, yes, the influence of Rome is still there. Those systems that Rome set in place are still being used. And they still control people. That was the whole point. So what Herod is afraid of is prophecy being fulfilled. As a even nominal Jew, Herod is going to know some prophecy. The Herodians, even though they were murderers and rascals, they still had a fascination with prophecy. Have you ever run into somebody like that? Like, why do you even want to know about the Bible? Because there's nothing in your life that would tell me that you would ever live by it. But, like Ahab, he was fascinated with Elijah. He wanted to kill him, but he was also fascinated with him. So just when you think he's going to kill him, he's like, okay, well, tell me about this. I have a question for you. There's a fascination here. And this is, we have Herod. He's got an understanding of prophecy. He's killed a lot of rabbis, but he's also listened to a lot of rabbis. And he's going to be familiar with the prophecy of Micah 5:5 concerning the 7 shepherds and the 8 princes who will overthrow. And they are associated with overthrowing the Red One. By the first century, a Jewish mindset is going to be Rome is the Red One, and we are looking for the 7th shepherd and the 8th prince prophesied by Michael to overturn him, and they associate that particular time with Hanukkah, because Hanukkah is, yes, it's the Feast of Dedication, but it's rededicating cleansing the temple from the time that the abomination that causes desolation was set in place on the 15th of Kislev, and then the sacrifices began to be made to it on the 25th of Kislev. And so in cleansing, there's this and Yeshua is still using that language of an abomination that causes desolation. So we know he wasn't talking about the Greek one. The Greeks are gone. Now it's Rome. And he's saying there will be another abomination that causes desolation. You're going to have to look to the past to understand what's going to happen in the future. And so Yeshua still teaches about that abomination, and it's very natural that he would be challenged during the Feast of Hanukkah in the temple concerning his identity. They're saying, if you're the Messiah, tell us plainly. And he told them. To us, it sounds a little obscure because he starts talking about sheep. He was being very precise. On the Temple Mount at Hanukkah, which remember, Hanukkah is called a Sukkot Sheni. It means a second Sukkot. Because they missed Hanukkah, because of the abomination, because of the dead thing, because some of them were on a far journey doing battle, they couldn't celebrate Hanukkah. They met the two criteria that if you miss a Passover, you can do it a month later. So it's kind of like a makeup feast. Hanukkah is the makeup for a missed Sukkot. So that's why it's got 8 days. That's why it has some of the earmarks of Sukkot. And that's why you see a lot of convergence here, even with the shepherds and the star and so forth. But they challenged Yeshua during Hanukkah. During the Feast of Dedication, it says it was winter, so we know it was Hanukkah. They say, if you're the Messiah, tell us plainly. And he starts on a sheep speech. Well, what they know, and the reason they're challenging him at this specific time, is this is when they expect King Messiah to stand up and destroy the red one, Esau, Rome, in that generation. But what we also know about Micah's prophecy is that involves lots of sheep. So let's look at it. Micah 5:5, it's a real simple prophecy. It says, this one will be our peace. When the Assyrian invades our land, when he tramples on our citadels, then we will raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 leaders of men. Right? The problem with that is it didn't happen. The Assyrian invaded their land and 10 tribes disappear. There was no 7th shepherd and there was no 8th prince to defend them. But again, we're talking about prophecy. The Father sees things far off that we don't see yet. Somehow the Jews came to associate this prophecy with Hanukkah. And so the mention of the Assyrian is critical right here. Because it's associated with the Assyrian, everybody would automatically think about the lost 10 tribes. And that, like we said last night, the disciples were asking Yeshua, will you at this time restore? Are you going to look for these lost tribes? Because this is one expectation, this is one passage that it's based upon, that when King Messiah comes, he will gather the lost tribes of Israel, bring them to the gates of Jerusalem, and he will destroy the enemies of Israel. And that's why Jews to this day have trouble accepting Yeshua as the Messiah, because they don't see him as having accomplished this yet. If he were the Messiah, he would have done this. Well, here again, what's our point? Balaam saw something that hadn't happened yet. Prophecy takes time. Has Yeshua been doing this very thing over the last 2,000 years? Name one other person in history who has turned more people away from idols. One person who has turned the nations of the world away from worshiping idols to the degree that Yeshua has and his gospel. Not one can even compare. Do we still have people in idolatry? Sure. Are there still vestiges in places that we would least expect them? Yes, there is. But to the scale of pulling an entire world out of idolatry and paganism, Yeshua is the one who has been gathering sheep into a fold. He is going to be a shepherd who can go out there. Somebody proclaims the gospel to people, and all of a sudden, sheep start coming out of that group. They start to be collected. So the shepherds are associated with Hanukkah. Now, where did it get off with December 25th? I think it's going to be one of the easiest holidays to fix in the millennial reign, because all we have to do is turn the knob. Christianity under Rome, under the red beast, they moved to a solar calendar. They kept the 25th, but they lost the month. All Yeshua has to do is print up the new calendars, whatever year that is, do it biblically, and it's going to turn the knob right back to reckoning the months by the lunar calendar, and all of a sudden, those who have been observing December 25th as a special day will once again be observing Kislev 25 as a special day when the abomination of desolation begins to be overturned by King Messiah. Plus, they'll get that double Sukkot. It's like getting an extra Sukkot. But the shepherds, you can see how they were associated with that particular time period. The shepherds are going to help, and there's actually a list of the 7 shepherds. I won't go into that. That's not the point. You can get the book. It's called The 7 Shepherds, Hanukkah and Prophecy. I can't remember. I think that's it. And then there's 8 princes, 8 leaders of men. King Messiah is going to be associated as the 8th prince, the final prince, who will destroy the red one. David is the central shepherd out of the 7 shepherds. Yeshua is the son of David. So you can see why they're asking him at this time, are you the one? And why he starts talking about sheep. What Yeshua is telling them, though, is, hey, I have sheep who aren't of this fold. And they were just like we are. We want to see it right here, right now, right fast, because we're feeling a little troubled and oppressed. And like I say, it's a good thing that I don't have superpowers, because half the world would be on fire right now. I mean, right? And it is a good thing. However, in a long-term plan, what we have to understand is Yeshua is looking 2,000 years into the future and saying, look, guys, I know that Rome is oppressing you right now. I know that Esau is controlling the temple. I know that Esau has infested the temple services. I understand all these things. But why are you not worried about the lost sheep? And that's why he says, you can't hear me. You can't hear my voice because you're not worried about your brothers. Remember, the 7th abomination is one who separates brothers? Well, I can't imagine that not being worried about those separated brothers is that much better. And Yeshua is saying, I came to get all the sheep back. And this is actually part of their expectation. It's just that under duress, in an intense time of trouble, we quit caring about other people and we say, save me now. And Yeshua says, no, I have sheep who are not of this fold. I have to go get them too. And that's what he's been doing. He was saying, yes, I am the 7th shepherd. Yes, I am the 8th prince, but you're not going to hear it right now. You're not able to hear it right now because your heart is not for the lost sheep who have been exiled out there in the nations and lost their identity to such an extent that they believe that is their lineage. And here's what, remember when the angels appeared to the shepherds at night when Yeshua was born in Luke 2:13? It says, suddenly there appeared with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace among men with whom he is pleased. This is exactly what was prophesied of the 7th shepherd and the 8th prince. It says, this one will be our peace. the son of David, the 8th prince, will be our peace. It says when the Assyrian invades our land, the Assyrian was responsible for the exile of those 10 tribes who lost their identity. But they were promised to Abraham, they're going to come back. They're going to come back, and they are going to have an inheritance within these boundaries that I am drawing. And now the sin of Esau, it becomes even more egregious, because not only does he want to control that land, even with somebody who's walking in the commandments, that spirit can be working and saying, I want my inheritance. I don't care about those people out there. I don't care that the Assyrian deported people and they've completely lost their connection to their father Abraham. But this one, it says, will be our peace. There will be peace among men with whom he is pleased. This is Yeshua's job. He is the one who is our peace. He is the one out there gathering in the exiles. Luke 2:8, again, it says, that may not be the right reference, but it says, in the same region, there were some shepherds staying out in the fields and keeping watch over their flock by night. Okay, that one sentence is full of prophetic language. That's why it helps to know the significance of certain words in their context. The shepherds, who do we think of? Well, we've got this whole line of patriarch shepherds and shepherdesses, I guess you'd call them. We know the promises made to those shepherds and shepherdesses. We know of the prophecy of the 7th shepherd, the son of David. We know about the fields because the field is the world. So the shepherds are out in the world and they're keeping watch over their flock by night. Night is exile. So there's an additional layer here. I mean, we all learned this as kids, and we all looked at the pictures of the shepherds by night and the angels and the star, and it was all glorious. And we sang the carols. But did anybody ever tell us about this prophecy that it's talking about? That Yeshua would send shepherds out there to collect the exiles, to collect the flock, and they would keep watch over them out in the field of the world until such a time as they could be brought home. That's a much bigger picture than what we're teaching little children about the shepherds at night. And these are shepherds. Remember, we talked about Adonai. He's lurking around, trying to do good. It says his presence went west with the exiles, and he's lurking out there, protecting them, looking to do good for them, looking for opportunities to wake them up and to heal their idolatry and their apostasy. He's keeping watch over the exiles until the 8th prince arises to shepherd them back to Israel and their assigned territory. And the rise of Prince Messiah is to punish the red one. And that time is associated with Hanukkah and the 7 shepherds. Because remember, what is he doing? One last time, he's going to cleanse the house of the abomination that causes desolation. In the meantime, if we're little temples, it's going to be our job out here in Lebanon, in exile, to begin removing any of the residue of the beast that's left in us, preparing for that return. Because Herod, the double Edom, he was both the Idumean and a red Roman beast, he's going to be destroyed. And those parts of us that conform to his image will be destroyed with him. So do we want to conform to the image of the beast? Or do we want to conform to the image of Messiah and the image of Elohim? That's the question. Because that which we conform to the image of Messiah is life. And it will persist into eternal life. When we conform to the image of the beast, that will be destroyed and put to death. You know, if we thought of it, if we could just picture our own bodies and say, how much of my body is conformed to the image of the beast? If that won't survive into the garden, if that won't survive into the kingdom of heaven, what will I look like with those pieces missing? Didn't Yeshua say it's better to have your hand cut off? Well, he didn't mean literally cut off your hand. But if it's doing something, repent of it. That's important. Because Edom will be destroyed. And remember what Edom represents, the red one. It's the soul. Appetite, emotion, desire, and intellect. Those are the pieces of the soul. But they should be in subjection to the Spirit. The Spirit functions on it is written, not I think, I feel, I want. Anything that you think, feel, and want that does not conform to the image of Messiah will be destroyed. That's why I say, what's going to be left? Could I get a little bit of water? Thanks. So let's look at Ezekiel 35, too. Son of man, set your face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it and say to it, thus says the Lord God, behold, I am against you, Mount Seir, and I will stretch out my hand against you and make you a desolation and a waste. I will lay waste your cities, and you will become a desolation. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Right? It goes back to what we said last night. Who is Lord? Who has the power to set the boundaries? Do we? Does our appetite, emotion, desire, and intellect, does that set our boundaries? Or does the Spirit? Does your red one set your boundary, or does your Spirit? Because in the end, the soul will have to be subjected to the Spirit. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Sure. And this will take us back to last night. Ezekiel 35 continues in verse 10, and it explains why. Remember the two nations that were in Rebekah's womb? And we said, okay, the older is going to serve the younger. Esau, Edom, represents the beast. He was created first on the sixth day. The man was created second. He's younger. The older, the beast, the soul, has to serve the younger. The spirit of Elohim breathed in to the soul. That's the order of things. The struggle in Rebekah's womb was over that very issue. The red one, the soul, I think, I feel, I want, wants to dominate the spirit. It is written. That's why to this day, Edom wants to dominate the boundaries of Israel. And he will not rest until he controls it. Here's what verse 10 says. Because you have said, this is against Edom, these two nations and these two lands will be mine, and we will possess them, although the Lord was there. Wow. What kind of rebellion is that? The older is supposed to serve the younger. Edom, crybaby, was given his nation. He was given his boundary. There shouldn't have been any conflict after that. No struggle. But Edom can't accept that. He says, I'll have both of them, thank you. I'll have mine and Jacob's. Even though I sold it, even though I forfeited it, even though the Father doesn't want me to have it, I'm still going to take it. And because of this, it says, you will be destroyed. You'll be made desolate. Therefore, as I live, declares the Lord God, I will deal with you according to your anger. Have you seen some angry people in the news lately? And according to your envy, which you showed because of your hatred against them. Have you seen some envious talk from the river to the sea? These two nations, they say, will be mine. Or will they? He says, so I will make myself known among them when I judge you. Verse 14, thus says the Lord God, as all the earth rejoices, I will make you a desolation. As you rejoiced over the inheritance of the house of Israel because it was desolate, so I will do to you. You will be a desolation, O Mount Seir, and all Edom, all of it. Then they will know that I am the Lord. Esau has his territory. The nations, the coastlands, have their assigned territories. We saw how he assigned it way back there after the flood. These are the families of the earth. These are your boundaries. These are your rewards. These are your blessings. But Israel is not reckoned among you. These belong to me. And because Edom has done everything within his power to prevent that from happening, both externally through the empires of the beast kingdoms and internally within every human being, he says, I will make you a desolation. There will be an end to this. Edom doesn't think it's going to happen because it hasn't happened yet. People don't think Yeshua is the Messiah because he hasn't conquered Edom yet. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen, and happen, as they say, right soon. Judgment arises in the east. Where did the wise men come from? The east. Right, east. So last night we said that Messiah is hidden in the north. Remember, these are significance, not necessarily compass directions. Messiah is hidden in the north, but the presence of Adonai, it says, exiled itself into the west with the exiles to lurk, to watch over them. And then King Messiah will bring them home through this route that we read about in the Song of Songs. But there's another direction. In all of this, remember Yeshua says there's going to be wars and rumors of wars, but the end is not yet. These things have to happen first. He's trying to prepare us that there's going to be a period of judgment, that the return of the exiles will be during a period of extreme judgment on the nations. Within that judgment, he's also going to be purifying his own. He's going to bring us over Mount Hermon. He's going to bring us through the snow for purification. When we look at the pattern for judgment, if we go back to Genesis, we can see it says the sun had risen on the earth when Lot came to Zoar. He's just escaped Sodom. And when does the judgment come down? When the sun had risen on the earth. The sun comes from the east. In fact, if you're in a Jewish building or a Jewish home, often you'll see a sign that says Mizrach, east, face east, or face toward Jerusalem when you pray. But judgment comes from the east. It says the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And that's what Yeshua says, as it was in the days of Sodom. He overthrew those cities and all the valley, all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. But Lot's wife behind him looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. And he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, eastward, and toward all the land of the valley, and he looked, and behold, the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a furnace. So it was that when God had destroyed the cities of the valley, God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had lived. So we have judgment coming from the east early in the morning. Okay? And we're looking at prophetic significance. Things that the prophets say that actually have some significance to them. When judgment comes, east is the symbolic direction. The time of judgment, sunrise. It's also going to be a time of salvation. At the very same time there is judgment upon the nation, the dew of heaven falls upon those who will be resurrected from the dead early in the morning. But Abraham sees the destruction, and it says it looks like the smoke of a furnace. We know that this happened during days of unleavened bread because one thing Lot did is he made unleavened bread for the angels. I don't know whether they ate it, but I don't know if I'd want anything Lot baked in Sodom. So it's happening during a feast time, during an appointed time. The smoke of the furnace is seen at another feast time, and that is Shavuot on Mount Sinai, Exodus 19:18. It says Mount Sinai was all in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and its smoke ascended like the smoke of a furnace. The whole mountain shook violently. So we have the smoke of a furnace occurring during days of unleavened bread. We have the smoke of the furnace occurring at Shavuot. And this year, we saw the smoke of a furnace on October 7th when we turned north from Beersheba in the bus going toward Ben Gurion. We saw Gaza on fire. And it was like the smoke of a furnace. And when we know what happened on those kibbutzim, it was like the smoke of a furnace on Simchat Torah. So we never know in which year the smoke of the furnace might be really significant in terms of judgment, in terms of signaling that possibly an era of something is coming to a close and something new is opening up. But it seems as though the smoke of the furnace is that sign to us that this is over and this has begun. And I don't know exactly what has begun, but I know I saw the smoke of the furnace with my own eyes. So that's the question. Why did Herod fear a message brought by men from the east? We know judgment comes from the east. In fact, you remember the hell bugs from Revelation, the tzira? It's called a tzira in the Torah and in Joshua. It's a hornet. It'll translate it out as a hornet. It's actually a tzira. It's not a natural bug. It's not a bug we would see. It comes out of Abaddon. It comes out of hell. Its job is first to torture, and then it cuts off the root and the fruit. Moses used it. Joshua used it in conquering the lands as they went in. We see that bug being called up by the millions out of Abaddon in the book of Revelation. And it says, like the smoke of a great furnace. So I would expect when those hell bugs are loosed in those great numbers, it might be aligned with a particular feast. That would be something to look for. But yes, judgment does come from the east. Just like the hiding place of Messiah, the star and the scepter of Jacob, comes from the north. And it comes with it. The north is associated with hail and snow and judgment. That's why you see Mount Hermon mentioned. It's a place of snow. The west represents that exiled presence lurking to bring Israel back to Jerusalem and the temple, to gather them up. So the east is representing something specific, harsh, dry judgment that will accompany this return. So Herod, yes, he would have been fascinated with prophecy, I'm sure, because his kingdom depended upon it. He had his ears to the ground. He wanted to know if there was any subversion, which he had subversion. That's why he kept crucifying people. But he had to have known that according to the prophets, the harshest judgment on Edom, of which he was two, would come with Israel's rightful king from the east. And remember, in the wilderness, this side of Israel was protected by the warriors under the banner of Judah, the rightful royal tribe that would hold the scepter. Yeshua actually had the birth lineage to sit on the throne, by the way. If you go back and you check his genealogy, he and his brothers and immediate male family members would have been qualified to sit on the throne of Judah, and that's why the Romans kept interviewing that family past the year 100. They would keep calling them in and interrogating them to see if they had any, what would we say, thoughts, aspirations of overthrowing Rome and trying to take over the kingdom of Judah, which at that point was being called, I guess, Judea. Herod knew there was a rightful king coming. He didn't know when. He knew the prophecies. He knows that the east wind is the strongest of the winds. If these wise men are coming from the east, they're bringing the strongest message. And with the east wind, he exacts punishment from the wicked. Jeremiah 18:17, it says, like an east wind, I will scatter them. The exiles were scattered. The east wind will come, it says, the wind of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh in Hosea 13:15. Ezekiel 27:26, the east wind shattered you in the heart of the seas. The seas also represent the peoples. Isaiah 27:8, he spoke with his hard spirit on the day of the east wind. Judgment comes from the east. And it was the east wind judgment that destroyed the dragon Pharaoh. Pharaoh is the dragon who passed his authority off to the first beast kingdom. We did a study a while back called A Concise History of the Beast, where we trace it from Egypt all the way down into the present. But Pharaoh, the dragon, made his mistake when he left the Nile, which was his place of strength. He marched on Babylon, and he was roundly defeated and had to limp all the way home. And he lost his authority. It was passed at that point to Babylon, and it began to descend through those four beast kingdoms. And so, yes, the serpent does pass off his authority to the beast. Exodus 14:21, it says, Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. Remember, sea can represent peoples. And Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh moved the sea with a strong east wind all night. Night, exile. And he turned the sea to damp land, and the waters split. When we're seeing all the wars and the rumors of wars, and we're seeing crazy things on TV and people acting in ways we never thought they would act, when we see the masks coming off, specifically as it pertains to the boundaries of Israel and who has the right to set them, we have to know that a strong east wind is blowing through our exile, and the waters are getting ready to split. Rashi, one of the great commentators on the Torah, he says that waters included all the waters of the earth, not just the Red Sea. He said every body of water on earth split in that moment that the Red Sea opened up for the Israelites, so the nations would know. Because he's like, how could the nations see this and tremble? How could they see? They weren't there. How could they be terrified of it? Because it happened to them too. They saw the oceans, the rivers open up. And I think this is explaining to us that passage in Revelation. It talks about how the waters of the Euphrates are going to be dried up to lure in the kings of the east. He's going to do it because as he dries up the waters of the Euphrates to lure in the kings of the east, it's like he's drying up the waters all over the world. Not only is he drawing the kings of the east in for judgment, he is making a way for his children to come home. What is judgment for the world is salvation for you. What is the desolation of the world is the replanting of the exiles back into their territory. So it says in Revelation 9:14, release the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. Revelation 16:12, it says, the sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river, the Euphrates, and its water was dried up so that the way would be prepared for the kings from the east. Judgment's coming. So there are principalities and powers that are in place. We see them being shaken out of their places in Revelation. As we read the story of the Israelites running from Pharaoh and his chariots. That strange language when the Egyptians say, you know, he's fighting for the Hebrews against Egypt. And you're saying, but you are Egypt. Why are you talking about yourself like you're not? Twice they're using strange language as if Egypt is not Egypt. There's two Egypts. There is the natural Egypt, the nation, the people, and there was a spiritual force called Egypt that was assigned over them, just like a prince of Persia. And it's thought that the actual prince of Egypt, that power started to descend to help Pharaoh and his army, and that's when Egypt was destroyed. He destroyed that prince along with the Egyptians in one fell swoop. He's using his power to demonstrate, I can not just control the physical things on earth, the things I put in place I can also take down. When they have ceased to perform as I have stated, when their usefulness is done, they can be destroyed or reassigned. And that particular power, if you remember, after, again, that battle with Babylon, where Egypt was so roundly destroyed, they never attained the same military might. There are time periods that we have to pay attention to. We have to pay attention to the watches of the night when we look at the prophetic language. And if you remember, the watches of the night are like the watches of the day. It's going to be divided, and it's going to be measured by sunup and sundown. But those watches are divided up, and there's a discussion in some of the Midrashic literature about how important it is. Don't wait past midnight to say the Shema. When you're saying your nighttime Shema, they say, don't wait till past midnight because something could happen. They say you have to hurry to perform the commandment. Don't delay if you know to do it. Just like Jacob delayed paying his tithe at Beit El and Dinah got raped. Bad things happen when we delay to do what we know we're supposed to do. Not when we don't know to do it, but when we delay and we knew to do it. And their discussion was, what you don't want is for the sun to rise and you didn't say the Shema, because now you can't back time up and go back and do that. We're supposed to say the Shema morning and evening. And if you delayed and somehow the sun came up, it can't be fixed. You can't turn back the clock. Now, does that mean you're not saved? That's not what they're saying. They're saying it's very important to understand this last watch of the night, because this is when it is expected that King Messiah will come. Remember, as the sun rose in the east, judgment came. But as the sun rises in the east, so will your salvation come. And so it was thought, yes, he will come in the last watch of the night, because remember, it says the east wind finished its work on the Reed Sea just before dawn, just before the sun came up. And what can you see up in the sky the clearest just before the sun comes up? The morning star. So that takes us back to the first beast kingdom, Babylon, which is still here. Remember, it's one image. Babylon was the head. It's where it started, but it's still in the feet, one image, just passes from empire to empire. And we're told that Babylon the Great will fall. In prophetic language, that means it will happen twice in history. Babylon the Great fell. Babylon the Great will fall. The image of the beast will fall. It will fall again. That image will be toppled from the golden head to the clay toes. And listen to this prophecy in Isaiah 14:12. To the king of Babylon, the head of the beast. How you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, son of the dawn. You have been cut down to the earth. You have weakened the nations. Babylon, the beast, Edom, Esau, Admon, whatever names we are using, is the imposter, not the star of the morning. Yeshua is the star of the morning. They are imposters. They want mankind to conform themselves to those images that they offer us. The dragon passed off this authority, but it doesn't matter. Where the beast derives his authority, we know where Yeshua derives his authority. The beast is going to be conquered by the true star of Jacob. You see why Herod was shaking in his sandals? It doesn't matter who the king of Babylon is. It matters who Yeshua is. The king of Babylon can put on different faces in different generations. He will be destroyed with the nations who conform to his image. And then the star of the morning is going to come, and it says he's going to rule with a rod of iron. Apparently, some people still need convincing. But we know who the true morning star, the one who will arise in judgment, but he will always arise for the righteous with resurrection. 2 Peter 1:19, it says, we have the prophetic word made more sure, to which you do well to pay attention as to a lamp shining in a dark place until the day dawns and the morning star arises in your hearts, Yeshua. Revelation 2:28, I will give him the morning star. He will give us Yeshua. He will give us salvation. He will give us the dew of resurrection in the morning. Revelation 22:16, I, Yeshua, have sent my angel to testify to you these things for the assemblies. I am the root and the descendant of David. He's saying, I am the seventh shepherd, the bright morning star. He is coming with judgment, and he is coming with resurrection. So he says, come with me from Lebanon, my bride. Come out of your exile. Come with me from Lebanon. See how it repeated itself, like Babylon the Great is fallen, 2 time periods? Jacob came from Lebanon, and Jacob will come again from Lebanon. He will come from the exile, journey down from the summit of Amanah. Find the summit of your faith, like Abraham. Believe it, that it's about a land, a covenant, and a people. That Yeshua didn't change that message, he brought it to you. Yeshua delivered that message to you. Come down from Sinir, from Hermon. Come down from the snows of judgment. Snow in Scripture can represent judgment. According to Job 38:22 and 23, the storehouses of snow are reserved for the time of distress, for the day of war, and the day of battle. Believe it or not, it's snowing. This is a day of judgment. This is a day of battle. But with that same snow of judgment, he is making us as white as the snows of Lebanon. He can purify us even in Lebanon. Remember, he says, your roots are going down. You're becoming fragrant because your roots are in his word. Your roots are in Yeshua. You can thrive even in a nation of your exile until he gathers you up and calls you home. You are going to return purified, full of faith, at that time of extreme judgment, a time of war, a time of divinely imposed diseases even. And he's going to come, the rabbis say, in 3 hours. Sounds a little strange. Their explanation, when they say 3 hours, they mean quickly. That's a weird way of saying quickly to them. What did Yeshua say? Behold, I come quickly. He's coming. So we have this fraudulent king, Herod, a Jew in name only. His heart's not there. For him, building the temple, it was just an activity of self-aggrandizement. Made him feel good. It endeared him. It made sure he kept control. But the true king, the Star of Jacob, was a threat to him in every way. He was a threat to him in faith. faithfulness, bloodline, holiness, authority, prophecy. There was nothing about Herod that could even hold a candle to this little king in a sukkah. He was terrified. Those gifts were very significant. Herod knew the return of Israel with her king Messiah would be a great gift that was returned from the nations. Israel is a gift that was planted out in exile. And the prophecies are that the nations of the world are going to return this gift back to their own land, that they are going to be gifts to King Messiah. They will return them to the mountain of frankincense and myrrh. They will return with pure prayers, the incense of prayer. They're going to be carried on the shoulders of their high priest. Remember, the government is on his shoulders. The gold. The names of the tribes and the Shoham stone were set in gold. We will be part of that new government if we are prepared to do so. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. He's saying, come on back. Come on back. I'm going to replant you. Plan A is still in place. There's no work of beautification that Herod could have thought to do on the temple or in Jerusalem that could rival this gift of human beings. What stone could rival a soul of a human being? Not one. Herod was worried that his government was about to be deposed by the authentic King of Kings, the Star of Jacob, the scepter of the Holy One from the tribe of Judah. So why would this gift be brought by wise strangers? Well, let's go back to that word from last night. Remember, shur, to observe, to look, to lurk about. Well, it also means a gift, tashuri. The people are the gift. These are the gifts that are going to be brought to King Messiah. How do we get the idea that it's a gift? Well, if you look at 1 Samuel 9:7, Saul said to his servant, behold, if we go, what shall we bring the man? For the bread is gone from our sack. There's no present. There's no teshurah to bring to the man of God. What do we have? The gift is the teshurah. And the future king Shaul is speculating, I don't have a gift great enough to bring to this prophet. What can I bring him? How about gold, frankincense, and myrrh? What would you bring to a king? You bring him his people back. That's the gift. The gift is the people. There is no product. There is no textile that you can bring to the King of Kings that will please him more than if you return his people, his gift to him. Tashuri. He's looking after his gift until it's returned. Isaiah 66:18, it says, I know their works and their thoughts. The time is coming to gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. I will set a sign among them, and will send survivors from them to the nations, Tarshish, Put, Lud, Meshech, Tuval, and Yavan, to the distant coastlands. There's our nations again. That have neither heard my fame nor seen my glory, and they will declare my glory among the nations. Then they shall bring all your brethren from all the nations as a grain offering to the Lord. There's the gift. The grain offering was referred to as a gift. On horses, in chariots, in litters, on mules, and on camels to my holy mountain, Jerusalem, says the Lord, just as the sons of Israel bring their grain offering in a clean vessel to the house of the Lord. Remember, without blemish. They're perfect when they're coming home. And how are they going to get home? Somehow the nations are part of this process. They're going to recognize the exiles. They're going to recognize the brethren of Yeshua. And they're going to say the only gift we could possibly give to this king is his own people, his own children. And so they're going to take those war chariots, their war horses, their war vehicles, and they're going to turn them into transport vehicles to bring the children home. They're going to take their commercial vehicles, their camels, and they're going to change them into transport vehicles to bring the children home, to bring the gift home to where it belongs. These nations, they know they have no proper gift for Adonai that will please him more. No gift for a king that will please that king more than this glorious return of a purified, faith-filled people. So we're not waiting for Yeshua to come and say, well, he'll fix everything wrong with me then. We're saying, it is written. Therefore, I think, I feel, I want according to what is written. Because if I am sent home as a gift to King Messiah, what kind of gift will I be? When he opens that treasure chest, what kind of gift will I be to him? You're going to be perfect. You're going to be full of faith. Your faith is where you have to go to, according to the prophecy, the faith of Abraham. The head, it says, the rosh of your faith. And so you're going to return from the north with King Messiah. You're going to return from the west with the presence of Adonai. You're going to return at a time of judgment on the nations from the east. And you say, well, what about the south? We left out the south. What does that represent? Dew. And dew represents resurrection. So that gives us all the directions. And that's what Isaiah told us in Isaiah 9:6. He says, a child will be born to us. A son will be given to us. And the government will rest on his shoulders. And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. So we want to make sure, as we sit here and wait, that again our roots are going down into the Torah and that we are becoming those fragrant cedars, those timbers that will be gathered up in Lebanon in the exile and returned back to the house. And that we would fill the house with the fragrance of our salvation and our redemption. Isaiah 49:18, lift up your eyes and look around. All of them gather together. They come to you. As I live, declares the Lord, you will surely put on all of them as jewels and bind them on as a bride. For your waste and desolate places and your destroyed land, surely now you will be too cramped for the inhabitants, and those who swallowed you will be far away. Edom will be gone. The children of whom you were bereaved will yet say in your ears, this place is too cramped for me. Make room for me that I may live here. Where? Nothing changed. Plan A. We're all going into Area A, no matter what they're calling it today. You will say in your heart, who has begotten these for me? Since I have been bereaved of my children and am barren, an exile, a wanderer. Who reared these? Behold, I was left alone. Where did these come from? You ever run into an Orthodox Jew that you just kind of blew him away because of what you knew and did, and you just didn't look like what they expected in terms of keeping Shabbat and keeping kosher and keeping the feasts? And you kind of see the marvel in their eyes, like, who brought these up? Where'd these come from? Thus says the Lord God, behold, I will lift up my hand to the nations and set up my standard to the peoples, and they will bring your sons in their bosom, and your daughters will be carried on their shoulders. Kings will be your guardians, and their princesses your nurses. They will bow down to you with their faces to the earth and lick the dust of your feet. And you will know that I am the Lord. Those who hopefully wait for me will not be put to shame. And that's what we must do. We have to wait. Not just idle, because the more you idle, the more you get into idols, right? Keep putting down those roots in the Word. And how will you know that your roots are going deep? You'll start to produce fruit. If your study of the Word is not producing fruit, that's a sign that maybe it's just informational and it's just the wow. You're on the roller coaster and you're going to land at the same place you got on. The Ferris wheel will go around and it'll be fun and the view is great, but you'll get off right where you got on. And the cotton candy will still make you sick to your stomach. When we study prophecy, it just establishes what's written in the Torah. It's preparing us to take our place in the kingdom, to be able to function simultaneously in natural and spiritual realms with King Messiah. So we're prepared to do whatever he calls us to do. Like Bill said, we're going to be busy. And let's just say he's planted us in the places where we are because we know that culture and we know that language. Because the families of the earth were placed according to their languages and their families. We understand their culture. You all knew what I meant when I said, bless your heart. She said, I didn't mean that. We speak the language. And so when he begins to interview for jobs and say, okay, I need you to go to Tennessee. I need you to go to California. God forbid. On volunteer day, be careful when you stick your hand up, right? Might be a lot to overcome on the coastlands. Because coastlands tend to be a little challenging. But they will come up under the kingdom of Messiah. And so he's going to call you in and he says, let's see your resume. And you say, here you go. Okay, you went to Vacation Bible School. What else? I went to church on Easter and I always went to the Christmas pageant. I know what the Roman road is, and I gave to Lottie Moon. Anything else? Is there another page missing? That's it. I'm saved, and I'm always saved. But what about discipleship? What about growing? What about conforming to the image of Yeshua? He was the living Word. What did you do that tells me you loved him so much you would learn my ways and prepare to go out and teach the nations? I know a few of the commandments. I think I know most of the 10 commandments. If you give me a minute to work with it, I can maybe come up with 10. No, that's not going to fix the nations. You have to have Yeshua as the king over kings in your heart. And you have to know who he is. He is the living Word. How can you go teach that which you have neither learned nor lived? So I don't know if there's remediation classes in the millennium. I just know I would be real ashamed to be put there. After so great a salvation, like I said, I got saved because of Snoopy. When I was 5 years old, we went to a vacation Bible school in a little old lady's garage in Rosemead, California. I remember her rose garden for some reason. And Snoopy came, his little sock puppet, and it was made out like Snoopy. And I was 5 years old, and I thought a lot of Snoopy. And Snoopy told me the plan of salvation. And I wasn't sure I understood all those words. I wasn't really sure all the sins I had done. I knew I had told my mother to shut up one time. And I didn't even know she heard me. I thought I was hidden, and I was not. She was like God. She could hear me anywhere. I could think of, some things I had probably done that I shouldn't have done. I didn't pick up my toys. I didn't really understand what sin was, but there was something deep inside of me that knew that whatever Snoopy was talking about, I needed that I needed a Savior. And then as I grew in my salvation. I understood more about sin, and I sinned more. And so now I understand the need more than ever before for a Savior. And so I've tried to grow in respect to that salvation. That's what we all have to do, whether you come with Snoopy or however you came. But if there's anybody in here tonight who doesn't have that relationship with Yeshua, I don't know that there's any point to you continuing forward, learning the commandments until you take care of that business with Him. So yes, because we love Him, we keep His commandments. And because we love Him, we are preparing. We're proclaiming His word out here in the exile because I don't know who the last soul is. Only the Father knows who that last soul is. We don't want to overlook anyone. We want to proclaim the name. But in the meantime, don't be troubled by war. Yeshua says these things have to happen, but the end hasn't come yet. Just because we see war doesn't mean the end is here. It means it's imminent. We want to be prepared. Because how does He resurrect us and how do we get brought back on camels at the very same time? I don't know. I don't know how that works. I can't explain that to you. But I do know that you are a gift. You're out here in your exile, and one day you will be a returned gift, not regifted. The rightful gift will be returned to its rightful owner, and you will be perfect.